The budget passed in the first quarter of 2022 is financed in part by borrowing. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Pierre sought to fulfill the government's obligations by seeking parliamentary approval for a US $100 million loan from Taiwan's Export-Import Bank to support that budget. But some of the funds will be allocated to meet the interest payments of central government's bonds and notes, as well as pay down the debt. This will save Saint Lucia $4 million on interest payments.
Central government debt, Mr. Speaker, stands at $3.9 billion, of which bonds and notes contribute 51.6% of the debt portfolio and is the most expensive of the government debts. The average interest rate of bonds are 7% and account for $97 million in interest payments annually. Significantly reducing this interest expense can result in savings in excess of $40 million annually. This component of the project will support government's ongoing expenditure, that is earmarked towards economic recovery post the downturn in economic growth experienced by Saint Lucia of over 26%. Mr. Speaker, what this means is that the government will try to convert some of the short-term loans into longer-term instruments, just saving on interest payments. Some $40 million worth of interest payments will be saved, which can be used for other purposes, Mr. Speaker. That is called reprofiling of the loans.
Pierre says part of the country's whooping debt profile includes the head-scratching land acquisition liabilities of the former Alan Chasney-led UWP administration. According to the incumbent, as part of a pro-growth strategy for capital projects, the previous regime acquired vast swaths of territory throughout the island, contrary to the advice of the then opposition, which warned that a huge bill would come due.
When you speak of $60 million in land acquisition cost that has to be paid, that was not done by us in 17 months. It wasn't. But we have an obligation to meet those costs. We have. Like the member from Catches North said, it is grossly unfair to take somebody's property and make them suffer and wait for years to get their money. It's wrong. We talk about payables, Mr. Speaker. Over almost 130 odd million dollars in payables when we came in.
But Josel Saltibus MP Bradley Felix claims that some of these liabilities preceded the Chasney regime, calling for a revision of the interest rates.
He was very careful to indicate that it's not just within the 17 months in office, but he very carefully crafting his words to suggest that $46 million in land acquisition was during the last tenure of the administration. That's not the case, Mr. Speaker. That goes a lot further than that. And we all know that land acquisition is necessary for various public development for the benefit of the country. But he also spoke, Mr. Speaker, with regards to the 6% rate that has to be repaid with regards to the value of the land. And maybe, Mr. Speaker, there's no bank that gives you 6% on your money now. Maybe the timing is right for us to also look at adjusting the interest that we pay.
Funds from the loans will also go towards public health expenditure.
Will cover retroactive payments for liabilities incurred related to the health center. And Mr. Speaker, that means that the debt that we have for quarantine, we inherited a lot of these debts, Mr. Speaker. These debts are going to be paid from that loan, Mr. Speaker. Because as you know, COVID was very expensive. And in spite of the fact that the last government borrowed over $200 million in during that period, there are still debt and liabilities left to be paid. So this loan will help pay some of this inherited debt.
In addition, the Prime Minister disclosed that the loan will help finance recurring obligations, capital expenditure, and settle long-standing cash flow issues. Gino Filippi, HTS News Force.